Hi! It's 2025 now. Happy New Year to those who celebrate it. And yeah, let's talk about this iPad. If you're in a rush, get the basic 10th gen iPad if you just need an iPad for web browsing, YouTube, light note taking, and other light tasks, and don't mind having an older chipset. If you have money to burn and want a 120Hz screen with Pro Motion, or if you want the best of the best, get the iPad Pro. For everyone else though, like the vast majority of prospective iPad buyers, the iPad Air M2 is the perfect Goldilocks iPad choice. It's got more than enough performance for the average person, and it has all of the software features that are missing out on the cheaper iPads, like Apple Intelligence and Stage Manager. However, despite its Mac level hardware like the M2 chip, it still falls short of being a good computer replacement. So if you want to hear my reasoning why, stick around, I promise you won't regret it. It's been a bit since I got this iPad Air M2 for university, so let's talk about it. I have the 11-inch, but most of this review should also hold up for the 13-inch model, and this isn't a student-oriented review, it'll be more of a general review about the tablet itself. So it's great if you're curious about what this device is, what it can offer, but if you want to know whether or not it's good for doing student tasks, then I'll have a student-oriented review on the way, so be sure to be subscribed for that. Alright, let's get started. Let's first start off with the pricing of this device. So the base model starts at 128 gigs, and for that base model you have to pay $599 USD or $799 Canadian. For the 256GB version, which I have here, it would be $949 Canadian, but I got a discount from the education store, which lets me buy this thing for $879. So if you're going into college or university, you can buy it from the Apple Education Store. And around the summertime, they will have promotions where you get a gift card as well, and that's what I use to buy the Apple Pencil. So if you really need to save some money and you're thinking about getting an iPad for school, wait until that summer time because they always have a sale for students around that time. As for the build quality and the hardware, this whole thing is made of aluminum and it doesn't feel like it's going to bend at all. It's pretty solid, it doesn't feel cheap, it's got that premium Apple build that everyone's come to expect from them. There's a smart connector at the back for connecting accessories, and the camera bump is a bit annoying because it just sticks out quite a bit, but putting on a case resolves that and makes it so that it lies flush on the table. And here on the top we have the power and volume buttons. The power button actually has Touch ID, so you can use Touch ID to authenticate to get into here. No Face ID, which is a bit of a bummer, but Touch ID is really nice, really fast as well. And as for the ports, this iPad uses USB-C, but there's no headphone jack. So if you wanted to plug in like your wired headphones or something, you would not be able to do that. You need to get a dongle, which is kind of unfortunate. But like we all have AirPods nowadays anyways, right? No, just me with my wired earbuds. As for the weight, it's really nice and lightweight and portable. I don't find it a hassle to carry it in my backpack. The design is modern looking, but there's still a decently sized bezel all around, which is actually good since it gives you somewhere to hold the tablet. I love how Apple has the iPad Air and the iPad Pro, and you'd expect the iPad Air to be thinner and lighter, right? But the iPad Pro is actually the thinner and the lighter one. It's just a little bit confusing. Overall, the tablet feels pretty durable, and I don't actually have a proper protective case with it since I feel like that adds too much bulk. I just use this ESR folio thing and I've had no issues with it. I don't know if you could call it a case though, since it's really just a little thing that snaps onto the front and the back of your iPad and it doesn't really protect the edges, but it's pretty nice, pretty lightweight. It doesn't feel like I'm adding much bulk to the iPad, and yeah, if you really like this folio, I have an Amazon affiliate link in the description below and also in the comments, so if you want to buy it, check it out. But yeah, as long as you don't chuck your iPad around and abuse it, you should be fine with a simple lightweight folio like this. Now moving on to the display and the speakers. The display is advertised as 11 inches, but it's actually 10.9 inches, just like every single iPad Air that's come before it. Like, it's not actually a bigger screen size, it's just rebranded, they just rounded it. It's not a big deal, I guess. It's 0.1 of an inch. The laminated display is really nice compared to the base model iPads like the 9th gen and the 10th gen. For those of you unfamiliar with the term, basically an unlaminated display has the actual screen and the glass separated, so there's an air gap, while a laminated display has a screen and the glass is one piece. So there's no air gap, and generally, laminated displays are considered nicer because, for example, when you're writing on the Apple Pencil, it doesn't make that like thocking sound like it would on an unlaminated display, which has that big air gap. While the screen is bright and sharp, it could be a bit brighter in direct sunlight, but it's not unusable, and the colors are really nice and vivid, really sharp. And the Pro has a much nicer screen. First, it's twice as smooth with the 120Hz display, and also has OLED, which gives you true blacks compared to the LCD panel on this one, whose black is really just a super dark gray, which might make a difference if you're watching content in the dark, but honestly, neither 120Hz nor OLED are a huge deal to me. iOS feels smooth enough that the lack of 120Hz doesn't bother me, but if you're really used to 120Hz, you might not like it. So if you really care that much about the lack of 120Hz and OLED, get the Pro. As for the speakers, it's stereo sound from the top and the bottom, left and right, so no matter how you hold it, it's a stereo experience. They get pretty loud and they sound really nice. Moving on to the battery life, it's pretty solid all around. I only need to charge it really once a day. When I'm taking notes and have the screen on for a long time, it can get really bright for some reason, which drains the battery. I think it's a bug. They might have fixed it by now. But depending on what you do, I haven't really done any gaming, but stuff like watching videos and Netflix really sips the battery. Like, you can make it last a long time if you're just binging Netflix on here. Generally, I only need to charge it at the end of the day. And because this is one of the newer iPads, there's also a feature that allows you to limit the iPad charge to 80%. Which is pretty good because this is better for the iPad battery health. Basically, draining a battery to 0 and charging it to 100 is not the most healthy way to preserve a battery long term. The better way is to charge it from 20% to 80%. Never let it go above 80%, never let it go below 20%. That's just kind of a rule. I don't really follow that rule too much because I don't really care about my battery health, but if you're one of the people who really care about battery health, this iPad has a feature that'll help you with that, which is pretty cool. Also, the settings app can show you detailed info about the battery, like the manufacturer date, cycle count, and maximum capacity that it has left. And honestly, this iPad charges pretty quickly. I wouldn't really know too much about that because I just charge it overnight. But they give you a charger that's 20 watts, and it also comes with a braided Type-C to C cable, which is really nice. Sometimes I use this 30-watt Anker charger sometimes, and that one's also really fast. Affiliate link in the description in the comments, by the way, if you want to buy that charger. But yeah, solid battery life, solid charging time, and the added features like the battery health metrics and the charge limiting, that's all really good, and you won't find that on like an older iPad. As for the camera, this is the first iPad Air that has the camera in the center, which is really awesome. Like, this makes so much more sense for when you're like video calling and stuff, because this way, if you're holding the iPad in landscape, which most of us are doing when we're on video calls, this way you'll be centered instead of awkwardly to one side when they had the camera in the top bezel, which was better for portrait mode but not for landscape mode. The rear camera isn't stellar, it's an iPad camera after all, but it's sharp enough to scan documents, take pictures of whiteboards and presentations, etc. And yeah, the front camera is really sharp and it's good for video calls and FaceTime. Center stage is really nice, and the microphone is really solid too. Again, you're not really going to be using this for anything other than like video calls, FaceTime, recording lectures, so this will do just fine. Now let's talk about the accessories, specifically this new Apple Pencil Pro that's exclusive to this generation of iPad Air and the latest generation of iPad Pro. This is the best Apple Pencil on the market right now, and it's a huge improvement over the Apple Pencil first gen that I came from. The biggest change, I think, for me, the most impactful one, is definitely magnetic charging on the side. I don't really need to think about it anymore because, like, with my old iPad, I had to plug it in to the iPad and it was really janky and I had to like make sure it was all charged. But because this just charges whenever I put it away, it's always charging. It's always ready for me to use. And then when I don't need to use it, I put it away in its storage spot and it just charges just like that. And it's great. Like, I don't need to worry about charging it and micromanaging its battery anymore. There's also new features like double tap and squeeze, and I try to use them and I'm sure I'll get used to them at some point, but I'm still trying to overcome the muscle memory I built over the 3 years I've used the first gen Apple Pencil 4. They are cool features though. One thing that is kind of a cool feature is Apple Pencil Hover, but it's completely useless for me and I turned it off because apparently it messes with GoodNotes handwriting. So Hover, I just completely turned it off. And there's a bunch of cool accessories you can use. Like, currently I just have a screen protector and the ESR folio case, and both have served me quite well. Like, these are solid products, especially the folio case. It's thin, it's lightweight, and also it has like a sort of clamp for your Apple Pencil. Like, this is something none of the Apple covers have, which is an added bonus. And also it's like 30 Canadian dollars, which is pretty good. But yeah, if you want to buy this folio case, then you can buy it using my Amazon links in the description. I'm not sponsored, but I just really like it. So if you want to support the channel, check out the affiliate links below. I also bought the ESR Magic Keyboard dupe, which is okay, but I didn't like using the iPad as a computer, so I ended up just returning that. Speaking of the iPad as a computer, let's talk about performance and software. So this is the M2 chip. It's got a more powerful chip than my M1 MacBook Air laptop. It's got 8 gigs of RAM and a pretty cool GPU. Like, this thing is really solid in terms of hardware. But nothing has really taken advantage of that though. It's a mobile software at the end of the day, and honestly, the iPad is closer to a big iPhone than a smaller MacBook. There's two ways to look at this, from the perspective of a tablet user and from the perspective of someone looking for a computer alternative. So as a tablet, this is incredible. This is super solid. iPadOS is a wonderful tablet software. Like, this is great for like consumption, note-taking. Like, I don't have any complaints looking at it from a tablet user's perspective. Like, this does all the tablet stuff you would want it to do. It gets a bit more complicated when you're looking at it as a computer replacement or a computer alternative, though. Things that are simple to do on a computer, like file transfers, are really weird on this tablet. Like, the little things you get used to on a computer, they're just not here. Like, window management is alright. Stage Manager is a good compromise for a touch-oriented OS, but it still feels really wonky and clunky compared to window snapping and like how precise adjusting window sizes and like rearranging windows on a computer, like a traditional computer, has been. And like when you're using Stage Manager, it kind of like snaps the windows for you and it like moves the windows around for you, which I don't like. Like I like having more control over my windows and my window management. And back in 2022, Apple gave the ability for the iPad to connect to an external monitor. So you can connect an external monitor and use a keyboard and mouse with it, but you can't drag windows between the iPad and the monitor. And you need to have the iPad screen itself turned on to use the monitor. You can't just use just the monitor, unlike with a MacBook where you can have the lid closed and keep using the monitor. And one thing that's really stupid, one thing that really bugs me is external drives, because you can plug in an external drive through the USB-C port, but there's no way to eject it like on a normal computer. You just have to close all the apps you think are using it and pray it doesn't damage the data on there as you just rip the SSD out. Like on a computer, I feel like ejecting external drives is a basic feature and it's not here. But generally, sometimes things just don't work. Like it's really buggy. There's some little quirks. For example, I needed to do some modules for school once, but the video player that the website had wouldn't work on the iPad. It worked on the laptop, but not the iPad. You never know what stupid thing isn't going to work, and you really take for granted how polished the desktop experience has become. I wouldn't say this is a computer replacement. No, it's more of a companion device to like a MacBook. You can't compare this to a computer, but it's definitely a good computer alternative. Don't get this with the expectation that it's going to be a computer replacement, that it's going to be your primary device. It's primarily a tablet that happens to be able to do some, but not all computing tasks. That said, if it's simple stuff like web browsing and YouTube, you could get away with it. But again, like if you're doing, especially if you're doing something like CS or engineering, don't get this for your main computer. Overall though, solid performance, solid hardware. This is enough performance for years to come on a tablet, but it's hindered by underpowered software that doesn't really take advantage of that powerful M2 chip. But having that M2 chip is going to ensure that this iPad is going to stay relevant for a really long time. It's going to get software updates for a really long time, which is really awesome. It's good for longevity. As for the Apple ecosystem, this thing is great. It fits great into the ecosystem. This thing is designed to be a companion device for the Mac. There's so many cool features that tie the iPad and the Mac together. It makes for the greatest productivity duo. For example, you can use your Mac keyboard and mouse on the iPad through universal control, and that's really cool. It works flawlessly most of the time. And you can also use the iPad as an external Mac display. So if you're out and about and you need more screen real estate, just pull out your iPad and you have two screens now to work on. Screenshots taken on the Mac can also be annotated on the iPad using the Apple Pencil. And there's just all the other basic Apple ecosystem features like universal clipboard, AirDrop, handoff. It's great. It's really awesome. But how does this iPad compare to the other options? Like, I'm assuming you're watching this review because you're interested in the iPad Air, but I'm assuming you're also considering stuff like the iPad 10th generation or the iPad Pro. Like, maybe this isn't going to be powerful enough for your workflow, so you're going to get the Pro. Or maybe this is overkill for what you need and you might just need a basic 10th gen iPad. Then that's perfectly fine. So let's go through all the options you have right now other than this iPad. So if you're only considering new iPads, I think this is the best value new tablet for sure. Like, this is the Goldilocks iPad compared to the other two full-size iPads. I'm not going to count the iPad mini because that's in its own little category. But like within this size category, like the 11, 13-inch category, you have three options. You have the 10th gen iPad with the 10.9-inch screen. You have the 11-inch iPad Air or the 13-inch iPad Air. And you also have the 11 and 13-inch iPad Pros. So I think, again, this is the best value new tablet. This gives you Apple Intelligence, which is on the iPad Pro as well, but not on the iPad 10th generation. And I think the M2 performance is more than enough for the everyday user, which means this will provide a lot of longevity compared to the iPad 10th gen. However, the iPad 10th gen is a lot cheaper than the iPad Air M2. For example, a 256 gig iPad is $699, while a 256 gigabyte iPad Air is $949. These prices are in Canadian, by the way, but you can always go on the Apple website for your country and then compare the prices there. So that's a pretty big price gap. That's like $250 Canadian dollars. So for that $250 more, you're getting access to the Apple Pencil Pro and the M2 chip, which is much better performance, and that gives you features like external displays, Stage Manager, Apple Intelligence. So if you care about those things, then paying the extra $250 to get the iPad Air might be worth it. But if you really don't care and like you just need an iPad for your kid or like your grandma or something to like watch YouTube and stuff, the iPad 10th gen should be enough. Another option is to wait for the 11th gen. Rumors say it's coming out soon, but they've been saying that for a while. So if you really need an iPad, it's probably not worth waiting for since you don't know exactly when it's coming. If you are willing to wait an indefinite amount of time though, it might be worth it, since the 11th gen might be just right for your needs, and it also bumped down the price of the 10th gen down a notch. And if you're looking for just a bare bones basic tablet, the 9th gen is really good too, low-key. Like, it's not as modern looking as the newer ones, and it uses the same chip as the iPhone 11, but again, for basic stuff like YouTube and web browsing, you'll be fine. And it came out in 2021, so it's really not that old. Now, if you're considered used, I think an older iPad Pro is also a good value, just for the screen it has, since it has that 120Hz refresh rate. That's not on any iPad Air model. But if you don't care about the refresh rate and want to save a little bit more money, you can find a used iPad Air M1 or even new iPad Air M1 models on sale, and those are pretty good value too, and you're still getting Apple Intelligence. Any iPad with an M series chip is going to get Apple Intelligence. But honestly, I think the quality of life updates that you get with the M2 specifically, like the centered front-facing camera and the Apple Pencil Pro, as well as the higher base storage, the M1 starts at 64 gigs while the M2 starts at 128 gigs, all make it worth it. Unless you find a really good deal on the M1 or you really don't care about any of those features that I just talked about. Also, keep in mind that the M2 Air also goes on sale. I saw this on sale, I think, for Black Friday and also for Boxing Day, so keep an eye on that. But yeah, I think this is the best tablet for students and people who want a little more out of their iPad than just web browsing and watching YouTube. My old 9th gen was good for those things, but it would get laggy while doing note-taking for a long time, while my iPad Air just absolutely crushes everything. Like, it doesn't really get laggy while taking notes or anything. Pretty awesome. Even people who consider themselves pro users, the M2 chip provides more than enough performance than the software can take advantage of, so at this point the only reason to get a Pro is if you really want that awesome screen. So overall, if you want just a basic iPad for your kid or something, or for just some light note taking, get the 10th gen or wait for the 11th gen model. If you want to do some work on your iPad or you plan to use it a lot for school or something, like completely replace your notebook, get the Air. If you want that epic screen, need the best of the best, or just have money to burn, get the Pro. In conclusion, this is a great tablet with hella impressive hardware, but it's not really a computer replacement just because of the software limitations. It's really hindered by its software. It's a good computer alternative though for those with lighter tasks, like just web browsing, YouTube. Like, if you're fine with a Chromebook, you should be fine with an iPad. As for longevity, it just came out less than a year ago, so it should last quite a while. At least 5 or 6 years of OS updates, and it'll be useful for a couple of years after that too. And yeah, it's just a really excellent tablet. I think this is the Goldilocks middle child of the iPad lineup, and it's just great. It's phenomenal. And again, if you want to support this channel, you can buy this tablet and most of the other stuff mentioned in this video below with the affiliate links in the description and the comments. And I guess that's it. I'll make a student-oriented review at some point. We'll see how my workload is here in university. But yeah, solid little iPad. All right, be awesome and stay techie. Bye! I forgot my phone camera stand at home, so I made this little camera stand out of cardboard and a clothespin, which I think kind of works. I'm just a genius, you know? And the microphone is really solid too. Again, you're not going to be using this for more than recording lectures or... What the hell? See what's in her mind each time I think.